What if the last thing you ever painted wasn't yours? Daphne Valtierra spent her life capturing smiles. But in her final hours, she painted a scream. And when the police found her, two things made no sense. First, her lips were sewn shut with artist's wire. Second, her last portrait? It was still wet. Daphne wasn't just any artist. She was a recluse, a genius who only painted one thing: smiles. Not the fake, glossy kind. The real ones. The ones that hide pain. The kind you only see when someone thinks no one's watching. Her work sold for millions. But in the last year, she vanished from the art world. No shows. No interviews. Just silence. Until the night she died. At 3:17 a.m., her studio alarm triggered. Not from a break-in. From motion inside. When police arrived, the door was locked from the inside. Daphne was on the floor, her throat slit. No weapon. No signs of struggle. Just three things out of place. A single paintbrush, snapped in half. A puddle of turpentine, still evaporating. And her final painting. A twisted, screaming self-portrait signed in blood-red paint. But here's what made Detective Javier Mendez's skin crawl. Daphne hadn't painted in months. So why was the canvas still sticky? Forensics confirmed it. The paint was fresh, applied within the last 12 hours. But Daphne's time of death? At least 36 hours prior. Which meant one thing. Someone had been inside that studio after she died. And they weren't just a killer. They were an artist. At first glance, the last smile was just a horror show. A woman's face, contorted in agony. But when Mendez examined it under UV light, the eyes were different. Not just in color, in shape, as if they'd been repainted, over and over. And when he scanned the layers, the truth turned his blood to ice. This wasn't one portrait. It was three. First layer, a smiling Daphne. Second layer, a face scratched out like a frenzied mistake. Third layer, the scream. But the signature at the bottom? It wasn't Daphne's. It was a name wiped from art history. A name tied to a 20-year-old scandal. A name that belonged to a man who drowned in this very studio's canal. The night Daphne's career began. So I'll ask you again. What if the last thing you ever painted wasn't yours? And what if it wasn't finished yet? Every artist leaves fingerprints. But Lucian Crow's weren't just on the paint. They were on her life. I should have burned them all. Every last canvas. But he wouldn't let me. Daphne Valtierra didn't start as a painter of smiles. She started in blood. A 17-year-old prodigy, scraping by in Naples, painting fake Renaissance portraits for tourists. Then came the commission that changed everything. A wealthy collector wanted a lost Caravaggio reproduced, not just copied, perfected. And Daphne? She was hungry enough to try. For 6 months, she lived in a crumbling studio, breathing in lead paint, surviving on espresso and panic. Until one night, she did the impossible. The forgery was so flawless, even experts were fooled. The collector sold it for $14 million. Daphne got 500. And a warning: breathe a word of this, and you'll vanish like the original artist did. But here's what no one knew. She kept the sketches, hidden under her floorboards. A catalog of every stroke, every mistake. Her first real art. And 10 years later, when her debut collection took the art world by storm, every original piece was a reworking of those forgeries. A fact only one person ever discovered. Lucian Crow, her restorer, her secret keeper. And, according to the paint under his nails the night she died, her betrayer. I didn't touch the last smile. But I know who did, because I'd seen that face before. In 2005, the night the real Caravaggio forgery surfaced. The night Daphne's patron drowned in the canal. And the night she painted over a child's portrait for the first time. The boy was Matteo Rinaldi, son of the collector who commissioned Daphne's first forgery. A child who vanished the same week the fake Caravaggio sold. And the kicker? Lucian had a sister who disappeared too. In 1999, after attending Daphne's first major exhibition. 2 missing children. 2 accidental drownings. And 1 artist who built her legacy on painted-over secrets. But the darkest revelation? The UV scans proved it. Under Matteo's face in the last smile was another layer. A woman's hands, covered in red. Not paint, fingerprints. And they matched someone still alive. Someone who'd been in the studio the night Daphne died. Someone the police had already ruled out. Because their alibi? They were at Daphne's funeral. The grieving widow, who never shed a tear, and whose gloves hid scars from artist's wire. Grief doesn't leave fingerprints. But revenge does. They found her at Daphne's grave. Not weeping, not praying. Scrubbing her hands with turpentine. When Mendez shouted her name, she ran. Not toward the exit. Toward the art storage vault. Security footage shows what happened next in fractured glimpses. 3:02 a.m. She smashes a fire extinguisher through a glass case. 3:04 a.m. Pulls out a small portrait wrapped in silk. 3:05 a.m. Presses it against Daphne's coffin. And lights it on fire. By the time Mendez tackles her, the painting is half ash. But not before he sees it. A child's face. Matteo's. With 2 words scrawled beneath. He knew. Mendez stared at her hands. Fresh burns, still shaking. She wouldn't look up. Why burn it? What was left to hide? She laughed. A sound like breaking glass. You still think this is about art? Daphne didn't just forge paintings. She forged lives. That portrait? It wasn't Matteo. It was her insurance policy. Proof that the Rinaldi boy didn't drown. That he was sold. And the man who brokered the deal? He's standing outside this room right now. Glass exploded as a chair flew through the interrogation mirror. His name was Eric Rees, former Marine. Private security for every major art theft in Europe since 2003. And the only person with 24/7 access to Daphne's studio. But here's what the background check missed. 2001, discharged for psychiatric instability after burning down his barracks. 2005, worked security the night Matteo Rinaldi vanished. 2023, purchased The Last Smile under a dead man's name. And the damning evidence? His boot print, found in dried paint outside Daphne's studio, the night she died. He's cornered in the vault, surrounded by burned paintings. His voice is calm, too calm. You want to know what's under the last layer of The Last Smile? Contract, Daphne's signature, Matteo's blood, and the name of the man who paid for both. But you'll never find him, because some portraits, they paint themselves. He raised a lighter. The vault went black. Then, a single gunshot. The bullet didn't come from police. Came from the widow. And as Eric collapses, his last act is to smear red across a blank canvas, spelling out a name we never saw coming. A phone buzzes. One message lights up the screen. Play the 2005 tape. Blood dries fast. But secrets? They stain forever. His hand trembled. Eric dragged his fingers through his own blood. Slow. Agonizing. He wrote one word on the white floor. Valtierra. Not Daphne's name. Her father's. And in that moment I knew. It was never about Daphne. Rafael Valtierra didn't just collect art. He collected people. They called him a philanthropist. But he was a predator. He used his gallery as a hunting ground. The police knew. The art world knew. And they let it happen. Every time someone spoke up, he bought their silence with a painting. But in 1995, one girl refused. Isabel Rinaldi, Matteo's mother. She went to the press. The next day, they found her body in the canal. Ruled a suicide. Case closed. Until 2005. That's when Matteo, just 10 years old, dug through his mother's things and found a sketch. It looked just like Daphne's original work. Because it was hers. Painted the night Isabel died. Signed in blood. Not Daphne's. Her father's. Daphne had a choice that night. Option 1. Turn in her father. Destroy her career. Admit every painting she'd ever made was a lie. Option 2. Burn the sketch. Let Matteo disappear. And keep smiling. She chose option 2. But she made one mistake. She showed the sketch to Lucian. And Lucian made a copy. He didn't just copy it. He improved it. He added details Daphne hoped had died with her father. And when Eric, Matteo's uncle, tracked Lucian down, he offered him a trade, the sketch, for Daphne's life. But Eric wanted more. He wanted the last smile. The portrait Daphne painted the night she finally broke. The one where she didn't smile. The one where she screamed. Because hidden in those brushstrokes was her confession. Mendez held the sketch up to a UV light, and in the glow a background emerged. A child's hand, reaching out from the canal. Then a phone rang. A distorted voice whispered, "You're too late. The real last smile isn't in the gallery. It's in Matteo's grave." And then, the sound of a shovel hitting dirt. Some graves don't hold bodies. They hold evidence. Rain hammered the ground as I dug. My hands were raw. Mud stung my eyes. Every shovel full felt heavier than the last. Then metal hit wood. I froze. "Matteo," I whispered. "What did they do to you?" I opened the lid. I didn't see what was inside. I saw my own face shatter. Then a gunshot cracked through the silence. I hit the dirt. Bullets tore through the rain. Whoever this was, they didn't want this coffin opened. 3:12 a.m. I radioed for backup. No response. 3:14. A black SUV tore through the gates. No plates. 3:16. A figure moved between headstones. Tactical. Professional. 3:17. I flipped the coffin lid. Not as cover. As a mirror. And for one breath, I saw his face reflected. Eric. But Eric died in the vault. Unless he didn't. I turned back to the coffin. Shined my light inside. It wasn't a body. It was a painting. A self-portrait. Daphne, age 19. But half her face was in shadow. Or so I thought. The other half, Matteo's features, blended into hers. And beneath, in gold, to my son. My hand shook as I flipped it over. On the back, a note in Italian. The translation burned. "They told me you drowned. I never believed them. Find the others." I heard a footstep behind me. Spun around, too slow. A gun pressed to my temple. But the voice wasn't Eric's. It was Lucian's. He stepped into view wearing Eric's jacket. His face was bandaged. He'd been both men. All along. Lucian didn't lower the gun. But his voice broke. "Matteo was never in the canal," he said. "Raphael sold him to a collector in Zurich for one of Caravaggio's lost sketches. Daphne found out. That's when she stopped painting smiles. Everyone reminded her of him. I looked back at the portrait. What I thought was shadow wasn't shadow at all. It was Matteo, fading into the dark. Then why bury this? I asked. Lucian gave a hollow laugh. "It's not a painting," he said. "It's a map. The brushstrokes, their coordinates. To where Raphael hid the others. The others." Before I could speak again, a second gunshot. Lucian dropped. Behind him stood the widow. Calm. Steady. "No more ghosts," she said. She raised the gun toward the painting. I dove. Too late. The canvas tore. Paint exploded across the coffin. But as the dust settled, I saw it. The bullet only grazed the surface. The coordinates were still legible. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Tell me you found them before I did." Then, a child's laughter. From inside the shattered coffin. "Zurich doesn't bury its secrets. It sells them." I sat on a jet slicing through the night. The torn painting clutched tight in my hands. The coordinates, now permanent on my arm, burned like a brand. Over the headset, the pilot spoke, voice grim. "You know what they keep in those private banks, detective? Not money. Proof." When I stepped off that plane and saw the vault door, 3 feet thick, the name Valtierra carved into steel, I knew I was in the right place. Then I heard the click of a gun. "Turn around slowly," a voice whispered behind me. "I want you to see who's been following you." I turned. It was her. The widow. But she looked different, eyes wider, face younger. And in her hand, a photo of a boy. Matteo, age 12. "I'm not his widow," she said. "I'm his sister. And you're about to meet the man who bought him." The vault opened. And what I saw inside still won't let me sleep. It wasn't a gallery. It was a prison dressed like art. Each painting was a glass case. Inside, children. Not painted. Preserved. Silent. Still. Their eyes followed me as I walked. Then I saw him, the centerpiece. A boy. No, a young man. Suspended in liquid. His face was Daphne's. His eyes blinked. Matteo? I choked. A voice answered behind me. No. His son. I turned. Daphne Valtierra stood there. Not old, not sick, but sharpened. Weaponized. A predator in a tailored suit. I saw it in a flash. Daphne, 25, on her knees in this very vault. Raphael holding a syringe to a crying infant's arm. Sign the papers, he'd said. Say he drowned. Or watch what happens when art becomes science. Back in the present, I looked between the suspended boy and Raphael. It all clicked. Daphne didn't abandon Matteo, I whispered. She traded her life for his. You let her think he was alive. But you! Raphael smiled and pulled a remote from his pocket. The fluid drained. The boy gasped, collapsed. Raphael tossed him a knife and whispered, Kill the detective, or I dissolve your father. But the boy didn't look at me. He looked at Raphael and lunged. It all happened fast. Glass shattered. The boy tackled Raphael into a display case. The sister shot out the lights. I grabbed a fire axe and went for the server bank, Raphael's ledger of horrors. Alarms wailed. The vault began to seal. Someone wasn't making it out. Then a gunshot. Raphael stumbled. Blood bloomed like paint on a white shirt. The boy stood there, empty-handed. I turned, confused. Who fired? A figure stepped through the smoke. Lucian, revolver smoking. His voice, drained and heavy. I promised Daphne I'd bury him. Now help me burn this place to the ground. As flames devoured the vault, I pulled the boy to safety. But he grabbed my arm, eyes desperate. There are more vaults, he whispered. More children. He sold us all. My phone buzzed. The same number as before. This time a photo. A girl floating in glass. Her eyes Daphne's. The text. Find her before I do. And then I saw what the boy was holding in his other hand. Paintbrush. His bristles stiff with dried blood. Daphne's. The screen inside my mind went black. A match struck. Lucian's voice cut through the darkness. She painted them all. Every missing child. And Raphael sold every brushstroke. Then the roar of flames. And a child's scream from somewhere deep inside the fire. Some stories don't end. They escape. I was holding a blood-soaked phone in the dark when the screen lit up. The message said, Find her before I do. Attached was a photo. A young girl floating in glass. Her eyes were Daphne's. The timestamp? Today. I stumbled out of the vault. Smoke curling around my face. Matteo's son gripping my arm for balance. Then a shot cracked through the silence. He collapsed. I turned. She was standing there, gun still smoking. The widow. But her face wasn't triumphant. It was shattered. He was never supposed to live this long, she whispered. Then she tossed me a key. It was engraved. Tokyo. Vault 7. She wasn't a widow. She was Elena Rinaldi, Matteo's sister. I saw it clearly now. She'd knelt before Raphael like a prisoner kneels before a king. He stroked her hair, smiling, cold. Bring me Daphne's final painting, he told her. And I'll let you hear his voice one last time. Elena pressed a phone to my ear, and I heard him, Matteo, weak, whispering in Italian. She didn't abandon me. She painted me to safety. That was when it all clicked. Daphne didn't just paint Matteo. She painted his escape. We made it to Tokyo. A skyscraper. Secret floor. Vault 7. It wasn't full of children. It was full of canvases. Hundreds of them. Each one a portrait. But these weren't just paintings. They were maps. Daphne didn't forge art, Elena told me. She forged freedom. Every stroke a clue. Every color a coordinate. That's when I found her. The girl from the photo. Her portrait was signed, D. Valtierra. When I touched it, the paint peeled back. Passport hidden underneath. Her real name was Lucia. Then the alarm screamed. Raphael's men were coming. Fast. Elena turned to me. Take her. Go, she said. I'll hold them off. She ran toward the gunfire without flinching. I saw her smile one last time, then the elevator doors closed. Outside, Lucia and I ran through the streets. That's when Lucian stepped out of the shadows. Calm, cold. His hands were clean. His eyes were dead. You weren't supposed to save anyone, he said, raising his gun. Then, a single shot. Lucian dropped. Behind him, still alive, bleeding but standing. The boy. She painted me holding a gun, he said. I guess she knew. Later, at the airport, safe at last, I opened Lucia's passport. Inside it, folded, a sketch. Daphne's last one. He showed me holding Lucia's hand. Beneath it, the words in Italian. Grazie per averli trovati. Thank you for finding them. I looked up. The wall behind me was filled with portraits. Every child we'd rescued. Every single one smiling. This isn't the end. Because somewhere out there, another canvas is waiting. Another child is missing. And another detective is about to pick up a brush. Subscribe. The veil of secrets isn't lifted yet. Backhand index pointing right, uncover the dark truth hiding in plain sight. Bell, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotionally gripping true crime cases.